set your heart on Him and His promises? Are you in love with God? If you will begin to do that, you will be amazed at what God can do in your life.
Hello. This is Carlotta from Akron, Ohio. Listen, I am so excited to be here today. I would like to take a moment, first of all, just to honor God and say, God, I thank you for the opportunity to even be able to present and do something of this nature. I don't take it for granted or lightly. Listen, you guys, today I really just wanted to talk about something that God has been laying on my heart for the last few years. Again, I am Carlotta from Akron, Ohio. I'm a servant of God. I'm a mother. I'm an author. I'm a mentor. I'm a coach. I am a mental health therapist and advocate. But on today, again, we are talking about faith, y'all, right? And so in 2019, I went through some just really dark moments of my life. Not that it was the first time that I've ever been through something, but indeed, I lost my mother. And so it was one of the darkest times of my life. In that time frame, not only did I lose my mother, but a few years before, in the same month, I had lost my father, and not even 3 weeks after my mother's funeral, my children were leaving my home and going into college. And so I'm a single mom of 4 kids. Y'all listen, I love my babies. And so here I am becoming basically a person who now has to look at themselves. Okay, so I have always been the caretaker of my family. I've taken care of grandparents, uncles, aunties, cousins, my own children. And now here I am, losing both of my parents, and I'm walking into this new level of life where God is like, listen, Carlotta, look at you. And so that was the first time that God began to say to me, take a look at you and get off of defense. Well, listen, y'all, I am a basketball player, right? I love sports. This will not be your normal, typical message about faith because I like sports. And so I'm going to throw some things in there, y'all. I remember getting most defensive player, and that meant so much to me because even in my life, I feel like I've always had to protect me. I had to protect me, my children, my parents, and anybody else. And so being on defense meant it meant the world to me. You know what I mean? It meant a lot to me. But God began to tell me to get off of defense. Well, I didn't understand it. I'm crying out to God and I'm saying, God, heal my brokenness. God, help me to move from where I am, because literally I can't believe that I couldn't just touch my mother and she be healed. Now, listen, everybody, that don't make sense to everybody. But if you are a person, an evangelist, a person who has literally prayed for people and they've got better, who has touched somebody's womb and they've been able to bring forth a child when they wanted one so bad and lost babies before. And so all of a sudden, your own parents become ill and you can't heal them. All of a sudden, in your own body, you're dealing with a level of sickness and you can't just heal it on your own. Listen, I had no understanding because I'm sitting here like, God, don't you care that I got all these things on my heart and on my mind? And God is like, yes, I care, but I need you to get off of defense. Just try it. Just do this for me, right? So now I'm going into prayer and I'm like, God, I'm about to be in my prayer closet. I need you to speak a word to me. Tell me what to do. So God began to show me that I needed to still deal with some of the, forgiving people and getting out some of the bitterness of my childhood, dealing with the wounds of my past. And so I went back to therapy. I began to journal more. I began to really, set prayer times and do the things that I felt like God was saying, doing, yet God was still whispering, get off of defense. I'm confused. I go look it up because I'm looking in the physical like, what does this mean? Like, why every time I cry and I'm trying to surrender and I'm saying, God, I don't understand. What do you mean? I feel like I am off of defense. I feel like I'm trying to give you all that I am. God is like, listen, let down your guard. Let down your guard. Like, when you're on defense, you are looking at the opponent and trying to guess what they're doing. And so every time they move, you're trying to move before them. You're trying to intercept before them. You're trying to be there before they get there, right? And so in natural life, a lot of times we're on defense in a lot of places of our life, and we're almost stopping a lot. We are stopping a lot of the blessings that God is trying to release to us. When you think about a level of friendships and all of those kind of things, I know for a fact that I've been on defense for so long that I potentially missed the mark with a good friend or missed the mark with a good mate because I've been on defense. I've been sitting there trying to say, like, God, well, I've been through this hurt and I've been through this pain. So you keep telling me to get off of defense, but don't you remember when this person hurt me? Don't you remember that I can't trust them or him or her? And God is like, I didn't ask you to trust them. I asked you to trust me. And so when I'm telling you to get off defense, I'm not saying don't be prayerful. I'm not saying don't use wisdom. I'm saying that I got you. You can love somebody. You can trust somebody. And Carlotta, trust yourself. So this goes forward, y'all, right? And I'm learning to do all these things again. I have begun therapy again. I have begun to just journal, and I'm crying out to God on a regular basis. And I'm going, God, heal my heart. I don't understand this place because I still fully wasn't understanding it, y'all. But I'm doing what I feel like God is saying doing. And every time I go to him, you really kind of trying to tell him people, right? God is like, girl, get off defense. Get off defense. You don't have to protect yourself. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to keep you. I know that most of the people or most people are familiar with Psalms 91. It is the prayer of protection. Or with Psalms 23, where God says that you won't have a need, that literally he will provide everything we need. One of my favorite is Psalms 121, where God says, look to the hills from which cometh your help. All of your help comes from the Lord. So he's given me these things, and I'm still crying, y'all. And I'm still saying, God, please help me better understand why you continue to tell me to let down my guard when I'm crying out to you and I'm giving myself to you in a way that I've never done before. And so God took me to just look up the natural messages for defense, right? And when I began to look up defense in all these different sports, it literally gave me so much information about, being quick on your feet, about understanding your opponent, about the different ways that you can be on defense, right? So I'm going through this thing and it's like, okay, well, you can be one-on-one, man to man. You can be the goalie where you got to protect the ball here, or you got to protect the ball in the zone, or you got to protect the area by doing half-court press. It's giving me all these different things. And then I moved over into offense. And the only thing the offense consistently said was be at a continuum. Be in a consistency. Keep going. Keep going. You miss a layup, keep going. You miss a goalie, keep going. You miss prayer time, keep going. You miss this, keep going. It literally, no matter where I looked it up, it said, be at a continuum. And so for some people that might not make sense. Now, it gave me a little bit of revelation because for me, I understand, again, I was a good defensive player. I was not as good with offense, but it's because defense made sense to me. It made sense to me to protect. It made sense to me to make sure that I was watching over, my team or myself or whatever. So that made more sense to me. But I coached a team for about 4 or 5 years, ladies first in Akron, Ohio, right? And we did not win a single solitary game in all of those years. And what we began to realize is our girls was getting so good. They were getting better at every level. It was an absolute pleasure and joy because when these girls started off, they didn't know anything about the game of basketball, right? But when we started to work on offense, and we started helping them understand that no matter what, they had to continue to try to shoot the ball to score, we would not win. You cannot win a fight if you don't try to put up a basket. You cannot score if you don't go after you miss a foul shot or miss a layup. And a lot of times, we're so afraid of letting people in that we don't stay on offense. We don't put the ball back up. And so fast forward in my life, I began to date. And I began to date someone that in that moment, I promise y'all, it was like God was like, you can do this. Like, this is the person for you. They've surrendered their life to me. And this is the message that I'm feeling like I'm getting from God because I wanted to, number one, I wanted to be loved. People don't have their guard up because they don't desire love. They have their guard up because they're dealing with their past wounds and conflict, and it makes you do whatever you have to do to protect yourself. And so I began to love, and I began to just truly believe that it was for me and that marriage was mine. And all of a sudden, it didn't work out. And I felt like this person had let me down. I felt like I had let myself down. I felt like I couldn't believe that I was in this circumstance because it didn't end the greatest, right? And so I'm sitting here like, once again, God, I'm crying out to you. God, I'm asking you to show me me. God, I'm asking you that at the end of the day, if you're saying that this is for me, please show me what to do. Please show me how to fix this. Please show me what next move to make, because God, I came here and I did this because I thought you said it was okay. So God, what is going on? And it was almost like I could feel this soothing, almost even gesture of a smile, y'all, where God was like, get off of defense. And I'm like, God, you cannot be saying that. You cannot. I'm crying and my heart is broken. And I got new wounds. And you still saying get off of defense? And I'm like, God, I don't understand why. Like, are you concerned about me? Are you concerned? Like, I dealt with this whole level of my parents being non-responsive, which ultimately led me to feel like God was non-responsive. And so I started to play with my own head, like, okay, well, maybe God is not concerned. And I would wake up in the middle of the night with God just literally almost smothering me with himself, with his presence, with this being able to connect to him. I was getting messages from people who had no idea what I was going through. And I knew that it was God's way of sending his love. And God began to say to me that every time you cry, it's just a sign that you're alive. Every time you begin to drop your tears, I am literally softening your heart. I'm literally causing you to be vulnerable. I am literally teaching you how to be a wife. And I'm just like, God, how are you teaching me how to be a wife? Through this, through these tears, through crying out, through still like, God, this ain't work. And then I began to replay everything that happened. I began to replay how when things were shifting and beginning to go in the wrong direction, how God had me up praying. How God had me literally calling people who I know are prayer warriors. How God had me literally calling people who have been married for years, have got skin in the game. And every time I'm calling them, they telling me, listen, Carlotta, you need to go to the word of God. Carlotta, you need to worry about you. Carlotta, you need to focus on you. Carlotta, why haven't you done this? And I'm like, y'all don't hear me saying that he did this? And they're like, yep, we hear you, but you got to focus on you. You got to dig deeper into you. And so I started putting all the messages together, and I was like, wow, through this pain, through these tears, I'm learning how to be a wife. And while in the natural, I'm not a wife yet. I know that I'm learning how to be a wife. And while in the natural, I'm crying and I'm hurting and I'm all the while still grieving, y'all, because I lost my parents and my children are all adults and they're out of the house. And so I'm going through all of these different emotions at any given time. And God is like, but will you trust me? Will you get on offense? And so I began to do the things that God required of me. I began to write. I began to speak more. Now, listen, speaking had been something that I have been doing off and on, but I needed to be consistent and still need to increase my consistency. But literally, I began to do those things. I became an author after this. I became, more trying to do more of my community leadership and walking into purpose in my job, walking into purpose in my own company, truly, truly doing the things that God would have me to do. Now, it's somebody saying, like, this still doesn't make sense. What does defense and offense have to do with that? Well, listen, I'm going to give you 5 ways to help you understand how to stay on offense and not to begin to pick up crosses and stuff that you don't need to carry. Because sometimes we're so busy guarding ourselves, that guarding ourselves from people hurting us, that we're really guarding ourselves from love. We're so busy guarding ourselves from the old stuff that new stuff can't come in. God can't flood us with the new stuff because we're so busy with this like this. worried about the old stuff. And so let me give you 5 things that God showed me. The first thing is make sure you're seeking God. Make sure that no matter what, in all that you do, God is first. If God ain't in it, don't be a part of it. If God ain't telling you that this is what I need you to do over here, don't do it. If God ain't saying get in that group, don't do it. But if God says it, do it. And do it when he says do it. Because again, I fell into the trap before of slow obedience, which is still in essence disobedience. When God says it, it is so. So do it when he says do it. Make sure you hear his verse. The Bible says, my sheep know my voice. I'm sorry. My sheep know my voice, and a stranger will not follow. And so if you hear God's voice, move forward. Number 2, make sure that in all you do exactly what God says in his timing, and don't try to do any kind of quick fixes. There's no quick fixes. You cannot just throw your life together, okay? So like when you go through stuff, we just don't want to feel the pain no more. Invite God in. You know how we hear all those Bible stories with the fiery furnace? Listen, God got invited in. And so into my heartbreak, I was like, God, come in this. Into everything I've ever been through, God, come in this. I've had to deal with alcoholism, addiction, and all type of things before. God, come in this. Because God, if you don't set me free from this, if you don't keep me from this, I won't be kept. And so one of the ways that you can stay on offense is literally invite him in. Make sure that you're not trying to do any quick fixes. Because a part of your process, a part of your blessing, a part of your miracle is the journey that you're going to travel. Is the things that you're going to learn along the way. And that goes into number 3. Your glory and story is your miracle. And so in everything that you do, you have to know that we all have a story. If you listen to some of the most famous people, they will tell you that they've been through some things. As a matter of fact, I can honestly tell you that at some of the high-end times of my life in other areas, like when business has gotten better, when I'm becoming a CEO of a company, when I'm opening up my own company, there's this personal side of my life that has been devastated. The same year I opened up my company, my mother passed. The same year I opened up my company, my mother passed. And so on one end, it was like God was prevailing and blessing. And on the other end, I felt like I was losing everything. But this is what makes my miracle. This is what creates in me a clean heart. I began to go through some health issues. And even in that time of my life, I was a single mother of 4 children. I was pushing through. I had 2 different jobs because one job wasn't financially enough. And so when God began to release me into another shift of my professionalism, and I was graduating with my master's degree, I began to become ill. So personally, I was suffering. But that is what makes my story just what it is. There's somebody that needs to know that they can go through an illness, they can go through a transition, and their life can still be okay. That they can get through it, that they can live through it, that they can see past it, that they can lose a parent and still keep moving, that you can lose a child and can still keep moving. Like somebody is waiting to hear your voice. Somebody is waiting to hear your story. Because in that story, they will understand that their glory does come. They will understand that morning happens based off of the darkness that you had to go through. So never, ever, ever underestimate the fact that you've been through some things, because you going through some things is exactly what makes you you. And number 4, in all thy getting, get an understanding. If you don't do anything else, learn you. Get a better picture of exactly who you are. Learn your likes, your dislikes. What has made you move up and down? What has triggered you? What has made you be exactly who you are? Going through some of the things I had to go through and learning about a relationship, there were certain things I just simply didn't understand. Y'all, I didn't understand why I didn't like cooking. And so when I began to dig into the ugly side of me, I had to learn and remember that, wow, there was a season where my mother was abused by a man and he made her cook. And so I attached that to a part of being a wife, and I didn't like it. So I didn't like doing it. Like, there's literally things about us, there's things in our life that we have to gain an understanding about so that we can go forward in who we are. So you don't have to be worried about being on defense with everybody if you simply be yourself. The problem with that is most of us don't know ourselves. When I found myself in this space in 2019 after the loss of my mother, I learned that I knew everybody else and I knew how to be everything to everybody else. But I'm just now learning how to be everything to me. So in all that getting, get an understanding of who you are. Get an understanding of who you are and whose you are. Grow in God. Learn how to pray. Learn how to center yourself around what God promised you. And as you do that, you will begin to be able to learn others. And listen, as you know, a lot of people talk about the people that you need at your table. Understand who's at your table. Notice I didn't say worry about. Because there's some seasons in our life when God is like, I got you. I'm connecting you to people who understand what it means to finish the assignment. And so in your life, there's going to be people that are prayer warriors. God gave you them for a reason. In your life, there's going to be people that know how to get the book done. God gave you them for a reason. In this season, there's going to be people that understand realty. There's going to be people that understand business. There's going to be people that understand what it means to brand. God gave them to you. And so you don't have to be on defense. You don't have to be so guarded and protected that you can't sit at the table with these people and get what you need. God is connecting you for a reason. And then number 5, and lastly, let God speak for you. There are many times, even when you go into a basketball game and you know how a person might foul you real hard and you want to respond, you want to hit back, you want to do something, you cannot respond to everything that the enemy throws at you. God will protect you. God will keep you. God will put you at the foul line for those free shots. So there's many times when the enemy will begin to speak low of you or speak on you because the enemy oftentimes understands the greatness inside of you better than you understand it. That's another thing I learned about myself. I learned that the enemy knew more about me than I knew about myself. Like literally, the enemy knew that there was greatness in me before I seen it. When I was still struggling as a little girl, thinking that people didn't love me, people didn't like me, the enemy already knew from the beginning that there was greatness inside of me. And so if you let God speak for you, you will find that he will confuse your enemies, that you don't need to argue, that you don't need to be in conflict, that you don't always have to be at war. There is a season of offense. There is a season of getting the job done. There is a season of finishing, and this is that season. And so again, I am Carlotta from Akron, Ohio. If you didn't hear anything else today, finish what you started. This is the season of offense. This is the season where you can write the book. You can get the building. You can do the marriage. You can do the promises of God. And I know, listen, there's somebody at the end saying, but I tried it already, so this one wasn't for me. Yes, it is. This one is for you. It's okay that you got a divorce. Get married again. Do what you got to do for you, learn you so that you can do it again, so that you can love again. God ain't put you in here. You don't have to stay that way. If God promised you something, it is so. Write the book again. It didn't go right the first time with the business plan. Write it again. You didn't pass the test. Take the test again. Listen, again, I'm Carlotta. It's offense season, y'all. So go ahead and score. Have a good one.